With reference to non-degradable pollutants, there is a phenomenon called biomagnification. Biomagnification. We have seen earlier that non-degradable pollutants remain as a residue in the environment, continue to exert their influence. As a result, there is every possibility that they enter into the food chain. When they enter into the food chain, they will not be used up in the body of the organisms because they are not constituents of any of the metabolic requirement of organisms. Therefore, they can cause serious problems. Biomagnification represents a situation where there is a progressive increase in the concentration of pollutants. A progressive increase in the concentration of pollutants as they pass through the different or the successive trophic levels. So, the progressive increase in the concentration of pollutants as they pass through the successive trophic levels is what is known as biomagnification. Most of the soil pollutants, especially the pesticides, especially the varieties of pesticides that we use, belong to the non-degradable group. Therefore, their chemical constituents remain as a residue, enter the food chain, and as they pass through the food chain from one trophic level to another trophic level, there is a progressive increase in the concentration of these chemical substances. For example, insecticides like DDT are classical examples of such a situation. DDT was first used in 1913 to fight against mosquitoes. To fight against mosquitoes which were causing diseases, which were functioning as vectors for diseases like malaria. When it was first used in 1913, it was found to be very effective. It was found to be very effective because it was successful in eradicating the mosquito population. But gradually we have observed two situations. One, mosquitoes developed resistance against DDT. Natural selection operated and resistant varieties of mosquitoes have survived. The other aspect is that being non-degradable, DDT has found entry into food chains. With the result, traces of DDT have been detected even in the human body. There is a recent WHO report, World Health Organization report, which says that mother's milk contains traces of DDT. And the same report says that the concentration of DDT in mother's milk is highest in Asian countries, including India. So what it shows, after it was discovered that mosquitoes have developed resistance against DDT and that DDT is entering the food chain, DDT has been banned. The use of DDT has been banned. But still, in many Asian countries, including India, DDT is still being used, still being manufactured, still being used. And that is the reason why human tissues have shown traces of DDT. Let me take a very simple example to show how biomagnification occurs. Suppose there are some 100 plants grown in a particular area. To protect these plants, some insecticide has been sprayed, some insecticide has been sprayed, let us say at a concentration of 0.1 mg per plant, a very, very small concentration, of course, 0.1 mg per plant. Suppose it means each plant roughly has received about 0.1 mg of that insecticide. Suppose 10 of these plants are consumed by 10 of these plants are consumed by, let us say, 5 primary consumers. Let us say on an average 2 plants eaten by each primary consumer. So in the body of the primary consumer, the concentration of the insecticide becomes 0.2 mg per primary consumer. In the producer level it was 0.1 mg, now it has become 0.2 mg. Suppose 2 of these primary consumers are eaten by a secondary consumer. In each primary consumer, the concentration of the pesticide was 0.2 mg. 2 of such primary consumers have been eaten by a secondary consumer. So in the body of the secondary consumer, the concentration now becomes 0.4 mg. Suppose two such secondary consumers are eaten by a tertiary consumer. 2 such secondary consumers eaten by a tertiary consumer. Then in the body of the tertiary consumer, the concentration becomes 0.8 mg per tertiary consumer. Where is 0.1? Where is 0.8? 8 times the concentration has become magnified. Just a hypothetical example. So this is the situation with reference to non-degradable pollutants like DDT. Now here what is important here is you can see the progressive increase in the concentration of the pesticide as it passes from one trophic level to another trophic level. The consequence is particularly severe in the case of higher level consumers like the secondary consumer or the tertiary consumer. And remember, man happens to be mostly at the level of secondary consumer or a tertiary consumer. Therefore, there is every possibility that such non-degradable compounds will be present in very high concentration compared to the initial trophic levels as they pass through the food chain. So, this phenomenon is known as biomagnification. This is one of the dangers of pollution by insecticides and other chemical substances.